Welcome back to Daily Persuasion. I am Joshua Lisec, the New York Times bestselling author and co-author, ghostwriter of more than 90 nonfiction books. And in just a few minutes, every single day on this show, I teach you a new tip, trick, or technique straight from the week's news that you can use to persuade the people who matter to you. You might have noticed how the past few weeks have been tariffs and trade and threats and all manner of these words that are being tossed around, of course. And if you have paid attention to both the left-wing and the right-wing media in the United States on the topic, you would find that the right is championing these tough trade negotiation approaches from the Trump administration, whereas the left is saying, no, you're being mean to our friends and our greatest allies, and they're going to retaliate, and that's not nice, and it's unfair, and it's mean, and that's not how we should teach our kids to negotiate with one another and to share, and that's not fair. And so Trump is a terrible role model for kids because they don't share. And stop right there. Stop right there. I have spoken at length on this channel about the anti-wisdom of scaling up maternal instinct in child rearing, and how all liberal policies, which ultimately drive towards communism, they are based on the way that a mother treats her young children, where the focus is on perceived fairness. So you can have a turn, and then you can have a turn, and then you can have a turn, and everyone gets a turn, okay? That approach. There's also a focus on emotional hurt. If someone claims that they're being emotionally hurt, if someone is loud and they're whiny, what does a mother do? She immediately focuses on that. So when the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, whines and complains about the impending tariffs on Canadian goods imported into the United States, the collective liberal approach to that is something like, you're hurting our friends. That's not fair. That's mean. I don't want my kids to treat their friends that way. It's kind of annoying, isn't it? And yet that perfectly explains and also predicts what their response is going to be. We don't talk about this often enough. The most powerful persuaders in any industry, including in your industry, in your network, are people who are able to predict what's going to happen next. And in order for you to be able to predict what's going to happen next, at any fractal or at any Zoom level, let's say, of your life, you can predict how a given action or response is going to affect everyone, depending on whether they are conservative or liberal. You can predict particularly how liberals are going to respond. Now, the libertarians are more so like, what do I need to do to get a girlfriend? That is the libertarian approach to everything. What is the proper mix of conservative values and liberal values that I need to speak of in public in order to get a girlfriend? That is the libertarian's perspective. The conservative says, what is the right thing to do? Then feel good about that. But the liberal says, if it feels good to you, it is right, so you should do it. And that's very much so the approach to children, raising children. And so what's happening is that liberals are treating governments, entire nations, like they're little kids. And conservatives can use that. The right can use that. So this past week, I had Grok AI, the X AI, formerly Twitter. I had their AI generate some images, both of the Prime Minister of Canada and also Mexico. And I had the image be a little kid in a Mexican flag t-shirt and a Canadian t-shirt, respectively, way down below President Donald Trump and yelling up in his face, "You got a trade war, mister. You're going to regret this." that does two things. Number one, it calls forth the liberal perspective that nations are just kids, but it also makes it very clear that the response to the United States is a couple of petulant children, and that the adult has to be the adult. And that is the conservative perspective, is to make the adult decision. And you'll notice that Mexico folded in less than 24 hours. Less than 24 hours. And they said, okay, we will give you everything you want. Just please don't do this to us. And Trump said, okay, we'll pause a month on this. So for you to take away valuable lessons from this episode and from this recent news story, the first thing to think about is any liberal in your life understand that they are going to be easily manipulated by whoever claims that they have been hurt and whatever is unfair. Every single time. They're going to be manipulated easily like that because of that maternal instinct that they have. Even the men, by the way, the liberal males are effectively women in this regard. They're effectively mothers of toddlers. That's how they process the world. If you want to persuade liberals, talk about preventing hurt and unfairness. If you want to persuade libertarians, talk about how they can get a girlfriend. And if you want to persuade conservatives, tell them that this is the right thing to do. This is the noble, honorable, traditional thing to do, and it always has been, and it will never not be the right thing to do. And that's how you can persuade. And understand that it is going to generally be effective if you have leverage over others, and you say, here's what we're going to do, but you don't call out the leverage. So the United States has enormous trade surpluses. So the amount of stuff that the Canadians sell to Americans is way, way more as a percentage than what the United States sells to Canada. And same as for Mexico. But when Donald Trump made these various tariff threats, he did not say, look how much leverage we have over you. He didn't say that. That would be equivalent to like a very weak father saying, I'm the dad and you have to obey me. You have to respect me because I'm the dad and I pay for everything. That sounds like a child's frame, doesn't it? That's like getting on the kids' level. Here's why you should obey me versus here's what we're going to do, here's what we're not going to do. I expect you to obey me because I'm your parent. Okay, that is a woman trying to sound like a man. That is a mother trying to sound like a father, and yet that's what men and many fathers do. Zoinks. So notice he did not call it out. He simply said what they were going to do. But the astute Canadian and Mexican negotiator understands that these tariffs are not one way, or rather, these are not equal footing situations. We're going to throw counter tariffs onto American goods. Yeah, okay. Go ahead. So there's a lot to take away from here about human psychology, about masculine versus feminine persuasion, about the way that conservative men and liberal women deal with things, and also how to persuade the different personalities. Yes. And notice, by the way, that, and you can see that this even applies to marketing and advertising. You'll notice how products that are marketed to affluent white female urban liberals, look at that abbreviation there, awfuls. Notice how products, specifically household goods, they have a little label on them. What does the label say? Cruelty-free. And people buy it. And that's why. This stuff works.